silence, turn it off, whatever. And now, if you will welcome Jill Joplin, who is the Executive Director of the Dekalb Library Foundation. She is going to introduce this session.
You can do
Welcome. Welcome in person, and welcome to those who will join us online. Who would have thought at the 2019 Book Festival we would not gather again together in person until 2021? And as this session sponsor and as a festival volunteer, I thank you so much for your support of this beloved community literary event. As Deborah said, I'm Jill Joplin. I'm with the Dekalb Library Foundation, and we support DeKalb County Public Library beyond your tax dollars. We fund things, literary programs and services that the library provides. The library is a co-founder of the book festival, so the foundation is pleased to support this picture book panel because we view this as a literary program for the whole community. And so you're in for a treat with our author and illustrator today. Carmen Agradidi is one of our favorite storytellers, and she's probably come to one of your schools at one point because I know she likes to go visit schools. She has written a dozen award-winning books like Martina the Beautiful Cockroach and The Roaster Who Would Not Be Quiet. And Laura Freeman is a Coretta Scott King Illustrator honoree and has illustrated more than 30 books for children, including the New York Times bestseller, Hidden Figures. And I'm proud to say that both Carmen and Laura are also books all young Georgians should read award recipients. This award is given by the Georgia Center for the Book, which the DeKalb Library Foundation funds and is housed at DeKalb County Public Library. And moderating this panel is another library friend, Jerry G. White. Jerry is an actor, a percussionist, and a storyteller. He is a teaching artist with the Teaching Museum of Fulton County Schools and the Georgia Council for the Arts. And Jerry is also one of DeKalb County Public Library's favorite programmers, and I've been to several of Jerry's programs. So please enjoy.
Thank you. All right, I think what we need to do first is just say good afternoon, good morning.
Good morning.
You know what? I don't know about you guys, but I've missed you. So I'm glad you're here. So I want you guys to pretend as though you guys are hearing the drums for the children's parade coming down the street right now. So let's give a drum roll now. All right, great job. So as you can tell, Carmen, Laura, and myself, we're right within this area. Carmen, Decatur, me, Kirkwood, and Laura, Marietta. So we're a family. So I appreciate that the book festival has made a concentrated effort to bringing local authors to this as well, because we're fans of yours as well. So if you notice, this is talked about as being a panel. This is not going to be a panel. We're going to have a conversation. And the conversation is about picture books. And we have two examples of great picture book author and illustrator, and Carmen and Laura. Would you agree? We would agree. Now, we're not going to take questions, but we will have an opportunity. I have talked to Carmen, I haven't talked to Laura, that you guys will read a little excerpt from their books as well. All right, so good? All right, so the first thing I want to think about is, Carmen, let's start with you. Do you think it's really important for your books to have the parents read the books to their children as well, to have a good family moment as well?
I love that question. I love that question. Thanks for taking that piece of paper I handed you a minute ago. Whether you're telling stories, meaning without supporting print works like books, or you are reading books, especially lap books, the ones that open, that tend to be rectangular, so they'll open across two laps and encourage that sort of closeness. Either way, how many of you, if I may ask this question, remember someone who either read to you or told you stories when you were very young? Where are you now? At a book festival. I don't believe that's happenstance. Readers are created by people around them who love language, who love stories. And so, yeah, our house is, my kids go to bed book drunk. Or they used to. Can I say that? Yes.
Yeah.
My grandchildren have a plethora of books. When I was growing up, we had the library, and we all still use it. Even when there are books in our homes, our libraries need us. That's it. That's my nickel.
Okay. All right. And for you are as an illustrator, artist, because I noticed that your artwork can stand by itself as well. So is a part of your enthusiasm for being an artist and an illustrator is to let children know that they can also read the picture book and become an artist or illustrator as well?
Absolutely. I started collecting children's books before I knew I wanted to be a children's book illustrator. I just love them. I just remember on my lunch hour going and browsing around bookstores and just collecting, like grabbing up children's books that I thought were beautiful. One of my earliest memories is looking at a beautiful children's book and thinking, and my mom telling me that, oh, that's somebody's job making those pictures. And that blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, I could do that. Right. And, I got sidetracked and different career ambitions, but it's just like amazing. When I came back to it, I just remembered that. It was like, oh wow, I'm back where I started.
Right. So, as in my introduction, just talk about being a teaching artist. So, when you talk about teaching artists, because Carmen always, when she goes to schools, you always want to be right there in the thick of things with the kids as well.
Bless them, yes.
And that means, so picture books are thought of as being interactive. So do you write to be interactive as well as giving that story as well?
Ooh. I think because I come probably from a background of story, a lot of my stories have voice. But I want to back up for a moment, if you'll let me.
Oh.
Because I want to reference Laura. Because in the author-illustrator world, and I'm just going to throw this out there and I'm going to be bold, the author often gets a whole lot of, the author. This is a picture book. It's half of it is comprised of illustrations, and the illustrations can take a good story and make it extraordinary, and take a great story and make it absolutely genius, brilliant. And I suppose when I go to schools, I generally tell stories, but I do talk about the books. But I make sure as I go through the book that I point out all the little Easter eggs, which is, by the way, is Illustrator, right? Code word for stuff they hide in the picture. Some of you know that. And you have to read it a couple of times before you go, wait a minute, I didn't see that rabbit. So there's a reason for that. It comes from my own childhood, and then I'm going to go back to you. And when I was a kid, growing up here in Decatur on Feld Avenue, down from Agnes Scott, my family was a family of refugees. And the community, we had about, probably 100 families eventually of refugees. Specifically in this case from Cuba, sponsored by this church. For Decatur First Baptist was our sponsor. Since then, this wonderful church, now it has things like this event. This is where I first heard Anne Lamott. It's where I heard Temple Grandin. It's an extraordinary part of this community with a very storied, if you will let me use the word history. But when I was a kid, and we were very poor, and that's not a brag and it's not a hoo-ha either. It's just what it was. My dad was a steel worker, speaking no English. When we went to the library and we were able to get books, and at school, I didn't speak English very well. So what did I get from a picture book? It's not rhetorical, you can say something. The pictures! And for many poor children, picture books are their first introduction to fine art, before they ever go to a museum or anywhere where they get to see art firsthand. In other words, the originals. This is it. This is one of the reasons I love them, and I so love people like Laura Freeman, who is just so gifted. Right. I'm not that nice. I'm cranky. Remember? I love your books.
Yeah. Right, and so Laura, that's the importance, just in its simplicity of being picture books. You have minimal words, but you give the children or the readers the illustrations, the pops, those few minimal words out. So can you explain a little bit more about that?
It's always wonderful to work with an author that leaves space for the pictures and doesn't describe every little thing that, the illustrator wants to bring something to the story. And in trade books, I know that the publishers purposely kind of keep you a little bit separated, unless it's like a celebrity author where they get more control. But they try to keep you separated because they don't want the author to dictate too much of what the story besides what's in the words, in order to leave the illustrator room to interpret, put their own spin on it, and add details from their own life. So that's part of the beauty of illustrating books.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because my illustrator for my book, she said the same thing to me. She said, "Jerry, that's why I'm the illustrator." And that's because what she did, I didn't think about it, didn't have any clue, but thumbs up, kudos, all that. So let's get
For the illustrator.
right. So Carmen, you said that you will leave, that you glad that there's a space for the illustrations, but when you're writing, do you have pictures in your mind?
So, you know, I was really quiet right here. So, this is interesting because we have similar but somewhat different takes. I don't think the author should go in there going muckety muck, because the illustrator has to be inspired and do their own work. And if you have someone that's pecking at you, telling you this is how you do it, you cannot create your own art. But I'm a big believer in an initial meeting between illustrator and author, where the author can read the text and the illustrator can ask questions. And the author may say things like, in my mind, the most important character in this is the child. This isn't, you have to draw them this way and make them this way. It's, and you know, everyone's different. Some people are going to give too much feedback, but the illustrator can decide. And I feel like that initial meeting makes such a difference, because when I write, I am praying that the person who takes it gets the story and then will be extrapolatory. They will just blow it up and even tell perhaps like a visual story that's a subtext. And you know, we've read some of those wonderful picture books where you have the written text, you have the interpreted illustration, and then there's something else going on the whole time that has nothing to do with the story. That's so wonderful. Often, though, it's the author-illustrator when you have the same person doing it. Mm-hmm. Tommy DePaola used to do that. He would have like, you know, what is it? Somebody Needs a Cloak. Anybody remember that book? Tommy Needs a Cloak? Is it? No. Which is it? You're there, librarian goddess. I know who you are behind that mask. I know you know the name. Anyway, in the story, there is a little mouse that's stealing things the entire time. It's not in the text, it's not anywhere. And at first the kids look at it like, what's that? Then the second time you both look at it and then you're like, oh my goodness, he's stealing something from every page. So see, another reason to love you people.
Right. And so then that question goes to you. When you're illustrating, you see something different. Do you automatically put it in there with the thought that it may not go over too well, or this is, like she said, the little nugget that needs to go in there?
Well, that's where the art director and the editor comes in to kind of reel you in when you go a little bit off the rails, or to give you a thumbs up and say, yeah, run with that. That's really, that's a good idea. Add that, So.
And for the children and children at heart, the art director is the teacher with the red pencil. It goes in, not on your life, no way. And the art director is the one that then leads the artist. So we each have someone who is sort of literally directing the story and directing the illustrations.
Right.
And they talk to one another all the time.
By the way,
Charlie needs a cloak. Yes.
I was going to say Google or Wikipedia. Which one?
No, she just needed her librarian brain to kick in for a minute.
Is Charlie the
I'm
mouse?
telling
Is Charlie the mouse?
No, Charlie is a shepherd who has a really awful, ratty coat, and so he's shearing the sheep, and so it takes you through the whole process of sheep to shawl, sheep to cloak, right? But in the meantime, every time he does something, shearing or spinning or whatever, the little mouse is coming up going, oh, good, scissors. Oh, good, some wool.
That's awesome.
So great.
I love that.
That's why these old classics, we don't want to forget these wonderful books.
Mm-hmm.
I love every time a new book comes out, all over it. But
right. Good Night Moon, I remember there was a little mouse that was in the background. And
I read that a lot.
Yeah.
But it was very aerodynamic after a while.
Right.
I love Good Night Moon. 87,000 times. How many? A few people have read the same picture book, and you probably one of mine. I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about the art directors and the editors. I don't know if a lot of the kids here know about what they do. So the art director is the person that I work with more. The illustrator works with more closely, and you're probably working with the editor more closely. But in making a book like this, I don't just get the words and then like this comes spitting out of my pen, right? Like, I read the story numerous times, I discuss it, I sleep on it, I think about it, I do research, I do a lot of biographies, so I end up doing a lot of research. And then I send sketches to the art director, and the art director is the person that has to, with a committee of people at the publishing house, decide, approve my sketches or book. I mean, I've never worked on anything that didn't have revisions at the sketch stage. I don't know how it is with an author.
Tell them how many. I'll tell if you tell. Okay, for me, and I'll pick the average picture book, and I also worked as an editor for about 12 years. The average picture book is revised anywhere from 20 to 40 times.
And that's just the words?
That's just the words.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's just the words. When
Wow.
I send in a manuscript now, as the old person that I am, I send to my editor the 7th version of a first draft.
Yeah.
So you've
So here's
already
my first-
revised it before you send it to them.
Yeah. Toss.
And then the illustrator then doesn't get it until it's, then you've gone back and forth with that
Right.
editor a dozen times or more.
Right. So I don't usually get it until the words are absolutely perfect, like the final, sometimes it changes. And then
know.
I have to change the pictures, which is
I
difficult.
would never do that to you.
But it's not usually the author's fault. It's, things change. But, by the time it comes to me, the words are usually pretty much down. That's what the words that they're going to be. And I like them to give me the layout of what words are going to go on what page, so I don't have to change things
Right.
around. And then I can dive into illustrating, putting a picture into that page.
And that's really important. You want to tell the kids about that? About page breaks?
Oh, the page, the page breaks. I mean, I owe a lot to the editor and the art director there, because I usually insist, you have to give me those page breaks, because I know it's going to be a lot of work for me down the line if that has to change, because that can totally change the illustrations.
So in a 300 to 900 word picture book, right? You have to decide where each place is going to break, because the average picture book has 32 pages in the U.S. It can have another 8.
Or 40, yeah.
40 because they come in signatures. And a signature...
So a signature is, I guess it's the... You're still here.
We love you.
My quote-unquote job is easy. I'm just saying. Have at it.
So signatures are, when they print a book, there's the size of paper that runs through the press. And so that page can be folded a certain amount of times in order for them to, to print that. And that's why picture books are the amount of pages that they are.
So you get 8 pages on each side. That's 16 pages is one signature. Uncut, unfolded. So you got 2 signatures, that's 32 pages. Add another one, now you're up at
That's
40.
Right.
So if you ever read a book for grown-ups at the beach, one of those, not that you all would ever deign, but if you did, you got to the back and there's a whole bunch of blank pages, like, why is this?
Yeah.
Bet you could divide the whole book by 8.
Right.
Yeah, and you send a,
It's weird. Cool.
and they're laid out that way with the blank pages for the author illustrator's photo, acknowledgments, whole 9 yards.
Timelines about this, about,
Back matter.
Back matter.
But of course, you want to start with the story first. All that other stuff is that'll keep you laid out now already, even though you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning in the beginning anyway. Now, for your book, The Children's Moon. Now, I happen to be a moon person because I was born under a full moon. So I tell everybody. So my birthday is April 16th. So every 16th of the month, it starts a full moon phase. And I feel, and you can check this on your birthday too. So whatever the date of your birthday, you check it every month, you can pretty much follow your moon phase. And I have the same feelings or reactions every month on the 16th, no matter what it is, good, bad, or indifferent. Check it out. That's your test for the rest of the weekend, to check out and find your moon phase and see how you react to things because of that. So the children's moon. When I read it, why don't you tell everybody what that moon means? Because I just find it an interesting sight to see the moon there.
Short version.
Short version.
Very short version. I can do it by telling you what inspired it.
Okay.
All right. So, every one of us has looked up at some point and seen the moon when it's up in the sky on a bright day. Yes? And the back matter in the book goes into the science of it. However, I never thought about it other than it's beautiful, and it always makes you stop, especially, it depends, again, on its phase. It could be really huge, and it's very entrancing. When my father died almost 5 years ago, we were at the beach, the whole family, and when, as we walked along, we were missing my dad a lot. He was 93, he lived a great life, but he was a real patriarch. And I was with my granddaughter, Ruby, and Ruby said, Nana, look, it's the children's moon. And we looked out over the water, and there was that full-bellied moon sitting on the horizon. And I said, the what? She said, the children's moon, you know. I said, no. And then she did that thing you people do, you small people. I know something you don't know. Wait a minute. She savored the moment. And I said, tell me what that means. And so she explained to me that her mother, who is a wallpaper and tile designer and who was always researching stories, told her that in Victorian times, Nana, that's when like Queen Victoria was, I know that. Anyway, they were so mean back then. Parents put kids in bed when the like sun was still up in the sky and they never got to see the moon. I said, no way, yeah. I said, they were mean, yeah. So Nana, yeah. When the moon was out during the day, so that even the youngest child was awake to see her, she was called the children's moon. And it was so wonderful, and I felt like that was just a gift from Dad. So the story is very simple. It's a modern day pourquoi, how it ended up there. And it's up there because it hears the children one night. The moon is a little late and hears laughter and says, what is that? And the sun says, it's the children, go to bed, they're coming. Oh, I would love to see them. Don't you see them? Only by shadow and moonlight. Please, 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 with a comet on top. No. The day is mine, the sun is yours, it's the way it's always been. And he sounds really gruff, but he's really not. He's sort of endearing. He's sort of like that uncle. Yeah. But you just have to get under him. You know, kind of underneath the cranky part. See, cranky's coming up a lot. Right.
Now, for standing on her shoulder, I mean, that speaks volumes for a lot of things. So I really love the fact that you didn't have to really do a lot of research to find women, females to capture in the book. So how did you feel knowing that you were able to do that?
Well, I did have to do a lot of research. Right. It's just the opposite. But Monica Clark Robinson wrote Standing on Her Shoulders, and she could tell you better about her inspiration. But when I saw the pictures, I mean, when I saw the words, I discussed with the editor and the art director who we were going to put into what women, historical women we were going to portray in the book. Because each page, one is about sports figures, another one is about activists, another one is about artists, and so you know how many people we could include, and it was wonderful, like meeting these women, that some of them that I knew well, and then others that were suggested to me that I had never even heard of myself. And so it was great to do a little research and learn about these women, and even the ones that I thought I knew, finding more things out about them. And then I hope that when children read this, or when they read the story and they see all these women's faces, and that they want to learn a little bit more about who they are, who they were.
And I keep talking about being a teaching artist because that's what I do. I help to bring characters to life. So both of these books are great for the author, the illustrator, or a teaching artist to come into the schools to help the children become part of the books as well. Because that's what we always tell them. Start with picture books to give them an opportunity to become part of the story, to use their imagination in real life time beyond the book and in themselves. So I'm going to give you guys a round of applause again. So I guess that's my teaching artist stump speech. Now, I do one other thing that I love about your book, and we're going to get them to read a little excerpt. Is that cool? In a minute. Your book takes you around the world because you speak of different, not necessarily countries, but different areas. Was that important to you as part of the story?
This particular book, well, somewhat. You do get to see the part of the negotiating the sun and the moon do is she shows him the world by night, and she says, now maybe you'd let me see it by day. I love her. And so there are images that are just sort of sweeping images of savannas and of cities, and the children in the back are represent all our children. But I don't think that should be extraordinary. I think that's what our world is, and it's something to celebrate.
Right.
Yeah.
Now this is going to bring it real time, because I'm a fan of Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles, the GOAT. So it's really important that we find books that the kids or even adults can learn something new about it. So one more time, how does that feel to know that you're a part of something that parents can hold up and say, hey, look, there you are as well?
It's fabulous. It's just a wonderful feeling knowing that I am in some small way connected to something that is going to be in people's memories, that will live on, that maybe will inspire them.
Yeah, because as adults, we're always looking for ways to, have a moment with our children, and books is the best way. And then if you want to put on a little music to add a little ambiance to it too, or some parents, when I'm doing things, are always afraid to cluck like a chicken or bark like a dog, or hey, have at it, because those moments, they're gone. If you've been around for the past 2 years, here we are 2 years are going on 2022. Time flies. So have those moments with books. So make sure you go over to Little Shop of Stories, get yourself the books. So we're going to get them to read little excerpts as well. And then we might find some way to get a question or two without a mic. So I think we could do it. I got good hearing. I just think that's important too. All right. So flip a coin.
Flip a coin.
See.
Okay.
You can close that.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, wait a second. Let's give them a round of applause.
Let's give Jerry a round of applause. The Children's Moon, written by Carmen Agradidi, illustrated by Jim LaMarche, the marvelous Jim LaMarche, Scholastic Press. And it's important to do all that when you read a book, because a lot of people worked really hard on it, and publishers worked really hard on it, and everyone in it. So, we give a nod. There was a time when the sun alone ruled the day, the moon graced the night, and little children were put firmly to bed before sunset. Boo hiss, boo hiss. There you go. That's what I want to hear. I was going to say, where are my rotten, stinky kids? But one dawn, as the moon slipped out of the sky, she heard laughter. It was high and sweet, like the daintiest of silver bells. She paused. What is that sound? Hurry, the sun urged her along. The children are waking. It's my turn to shine. So the moon glided away in a shimmering trail of moon dust. One more page. That dusk, however, when they met again, the moon could scarcely contain herself. Oh, do tell me about the children, won't you? Nearby, the church bells rang.
We did say ambiance, and we got it.
And they kept ringing. But the children slept on. Surely you've seen them huff the sun.
High noon. High noon.
It's midnight, cried the moon. I only see them by moonlight, she reminded him. And it's so loud and I'm so distracted I can hardly tell what I'm seeing in the shadows. I don't know what I'm reading now. Well, said the sun, they're small and fast and they make a great deal of noise. But they do love drawing pictures of me, which makes them rather wonderful, I think.
Standing on her shoulders.
Oh, I can't compete with that.
I'll get you some bells.
Thank you. Standing on Her Shoulders, a celebration of women, written by Monica Clark Robinson and illustrated by me, Laura Freeman.
Fair is fair.
I get some too.
The bells toll. The bells toll for who? The toll for you.
Toll for thee.
I'm just going to go on. Come sit with us, child. We have stories to tell. Listen closely. You come from a deep, deep well. Our mothers and all those who've gone before paved a freer path and opened a wider door. There is surely still plenty of work to do, but there is much to learn from what they went through. For we are standing on the shoulders of the strong, smart, sage, and soulful ones who have gone before us. I just want to pause and say that the illustrations are showing a family, and on the pictures on the wall behind them are all these different women that they collect pictures of. Famous women, women from their own families as well. Think of the one who mothers you. She's with you even when you're apart. You are forever a piece of her heart. Speak her name. Can you speak her name? Who's your mom? What's her name, Mom? And the ones who came before her, generations strong, their words sing of grit and love, your family song. You are standing on their shoulders. They're having a family reunion, all their women in their family. Freedom seekers, truth speakers, fierce women brave and wise, justice burning in their eyes. Warriors in the fight and marching for their right, believing in a day when women would have a say. I'm not going to go on and read the whole book.
Good job. So as you guys can tell, on the lawn we have these wonderful booksellers, so let's give them a round of applause as well. And of course, because we all have a really deep connection to Little Shop, so we want to blow a little kiss to Little Shop Stories. Little Shop Stories, we love you, Diane, Dave, and the whole team. So thank you guys. So I know we were all told that we weren't going to ask any questions, and that was primarily because of the mic. But I'm nearsighted, but my hearing is pretty good, so I think we can get some questions.
I wanted to ask Carmen, you mentioned editor and agent. Can you explain the difference?
No. I didn't mention agent. So the agent, if you have an agent, and I didn't have an agent for like 10 years or 20 years, what the agent does is the agent negotiates the contracts for you, essentially.
How did you sell a book without an agent?
You can send a book as just on your own. If you go to a publishing website and you will go to submissions, there'll always be a button for submissions. There are times, like right now, a lot of submissions are closed because people had a lot of time to write the last year and a half. So you've got a lot of people schlepping through a lot of manuscripts trying to get answers back. But generally, you can on your own. And it used to be that you could only submit one story, your story to a publisher. You had to wait for them to answer you, which could take 3 to 6 months. And then if it was a rejection, you started over. Now, multiple submissions are acceptable. It's also good manners to write the people back if you are accepted that didn't have an answer. You can say, by the way, I've been accepted by someone. Thank you much for you. You don't have to do that, but yes, you do. Jim was chosen by Diane Hess, my editor, and I have another book coming up with Peachtree. That's with Scholastic, and then I have one with Peachtree coming up with Brian Lees, and then another one with Scholastic with Henry Cole.
Have you been with Peachtree your whole?
Most of, and I love them.
And
And I've done some school book, other books that were more sort of school focused, like The Rooster Would Not Be Quiet, Rita and Ralph's Rotten Day. But then I have Martina, The Beautiful Cockroach, and 14 Cows for America, and anyway, My Library Dragon.
When you start to write, like between the time you start, between the time it's published, what's the timeline?
Wow. The timeline can be, I mean, you could probably answer that as well as I do. It can be years. It generally years. Well, it's always years. I've never known of a book that like you wrote and you did through the entire editing process. And then I can speak for myself and generally, and the people that I've worked with. So you will probably work on a manuscript a good 6 months, maybe. I think that's a good yes. Back there, without pointing you out? Yes. Anyway, and then you have another at least 6 months with illustration sketches. Then you have to have the actual art, and then you have to have the printing, 2 to 3 years. I went to your school?
You went to school a lot.
Oh, I'm so glad I went. I hope you enjoyed it.
What was the name of your school?
Globe Academy. There was a contest?
Did you win? Yep.
Repeat the question.
Okay, yeah. Well, she was
This is a declarative statement.
Yeah, she was referencing that Carmen graced her school with her presence, and so
That wasn't exactly how she put it.
I like for my book, and that's in the Colorful Kente Cloth. It's through 1010 Publishing, and they're a local publishing house, and it's bilingual, literal, and bicultural. So I submitted on Mother's Day, Cinco de Mayo, and got a response on Cinco de Mayo. But
The same day or a year later?
No, it was that last year, but it was a 5-year process where I've written this one plus other ones, and so. But I wrote it just to be able to tell a story as a teaching artist. So I was fortunate, lucky, however you want to call it. But I tell everybody to have consistency, perseverance, and just tell your story.
Yeah.
Perseverance is the key.
We have a young in here and a young lady back here. I did.
Have you ever written a chapter book?
Yes, the Cheshire Cheese Cat. And don't even start on the Cuban woman who was a refugee in the South who writes about Charles Dickens. I don't want to hear it from you. Not from one of you. I have never had more fun working with Randall Wright, working on a book. I mean, like literally like giddy fun. Just such, and it's in, I don't know how many languages now. I know, literally we have, it's in Korean, it's in French, it's in Chinese, it's in Hebrew. Well,
Wow.
somebody here is from Peachtree knows. It's like in 18 languages, and it got like 4-star reviews, and you've never heard of it. But the Cheshire Cheese Cat, it's really fun.
Well, now we can.
I'll get you a copy. I know the author.
For Laura, the illustrator, you were talking about how you turn in manuscripts, you don't have any different illustrator. I mean, you submit artwork. How does an author identify an artist? I mean, of course, social media now has opened that up.
Right. It's a long process as well. It's the same thing though. Right now I have an agent, but for many years I didn't. And what I used to do was have postcards made with my images, my illustrations on them, and then I would send them out. I had a list of art directors at different publishing houses. I also work on editorial work, so I sent them to magazines and newspapers, and so I had big lists that I would send out. It costs a lot of money to have all these postcards printed and mailed. Nowadays, it's not as necessary with the internet. You can email an image as long as you can find the art director's email address at a lot of these publishing houses' sites, and LinkedIn is good for that as well. I go on LinkedIn and try to figure out who the art director is, and just start extrapolating what their email might be, at scholastic.com. Yeah, right, exactly. And then just start sending out images of my work with my contact information and a link to my website. and people have responded to that. Another way is going on and having art on Instagram. That's really helpful now. So I try to remember to post to it. I'm not very good at consistently posting to it, but that's another way I do it. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting question.
Yeah. How much autonomy do you have that an author can say she would like to work with a particular illustrator, or maybe even vice versa?
When you start out, you have nothing, not Zippo. You're just so grateful they're publishing you, you can't stand it. And you just don't have that much pull. The older you are, the more books, if you stay with this particular career as an illustrator or a writer, usually because it begins with the writer, we're the ones asking for the illustrator, though it may also be that you've said to someone, I would like to work with that author. Henry Cole and I were at a conference for ALA sitting next to each other, and I said, oh man, Henry, I would love to work with you. He goes, oh, I would love to work with you. Write me a story. I said, draw me a picture. So we have a book coming out in 23, Karina Felina. But I did specifically ask for him, but even then, guys, there's such a process. I told my editor, who called his agent, who spoke to Henry. Remember, we'd been together, right? Like drinking coffee, going, I'd love to do a book together. And then
and you still have to play telephone.
And you still had to go through the, because his agent may say, no, Henry, this isn't the right book for you, or you have too many books coming up. Brian Lees and I were at a conference, and we just adored one another. And I have loved his Bat books as long as he has been alive, and I've been alive. Well, Bats in the Library, Bats at the Beach. If you don't know Bats at the Library, oh my goodness, you guys, this is so wonderful if you love libraries. Same thing. We became Facebook friends, and I kept saying, oh, please, please, but he doesn't usually illustrate other people's books. So then I had this book, Wombat Said Come In. It's coming out next year. And I went to, and Peachtree is publishing, and I said, please, 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 can I have Brian?
Alley. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they called his agent, who called Brian, who said, yeah, I really did talk to her. She didn't make that up. I'm like, and then Jim LaMarche, they just said, here are some options, and I just love Jim, and we've never met. But you and I have met now.
Now we have.
Yes, we have.
Conversations will ensue.
Want to draw me some pictures? I'd love to write.
We may have.
So wait, with Jim, they gave you options?
Yeah, I have great oldness. With great oldness comes great crankiness. I told you.
All right, we're going to get one more question from my friend Will. Hello, Will. Another teaching artist.
Gary and I work together at the Children's Museum. So, hey, good to see you. And so, this is going to sound really random, but just a couple of weeks ago, I started working at a specialty. What movies we play? We got a stack of DVDs, and we got Disney Plus. So it's one of my responsibilities. As soon as one movie is done, we throw another movie on. And I'm just fascinated by Coco. We must have watched it at least 3 times in the last 2 weeks. And knowing what I know about your background, I am in a unique, because I've gotten questions about this from parents, I'm in a unique position to ask you, even though this seems really random. Did Coco get it right? Is that a good...
Okay, that's actually a really good question. So Coco the movie, right? Yeah. And it has Day of the Dead, and has Mexico, Cuba. You have to ask a different person. And so that's the thing. But I mean, this is where we all get like really freaked out. It doesn't matter whether you are white, black, Asian, Latina, Hispanic, whatever you want to call me. All right. The fact is, the more we get like, I don't know if I said the right thing, because somebody's going to yell at me. Okay, enough already, people. Enough. I told you guys, I warned you from the beginning. I know, I'm personally done. Tell someone, I would like to talk about this, or I would like to ask you a question. Would you be open to let me ask some questions so I can learn more about your culture? I have had a friend recently say, I want to tell the story about Cuba. It's a folktale, but I'm really nervous. I'm like, what? I'm gonna yell at you. You know why I would be upset? If you didn't do your homework, if you didn't honor my culture, if you had us eating arepas when arepas are from Peru. So if you do the homework, you honor the culture, you talk to people within the culture and say, help me out here because I want this to be right, because I do love your culture, and that's why I want to tell it. You know what's going to happen? You're probably going to have people going, oh my goodness, thank you for doing it right. By the way, everything I've heard from my Mexican friends, Coco did it right.
All right.
But that's, secondhand.
On the other hand, I think that publishers are really cognizant right now about hiring
Diverse
authors
voices. That's different.
Who have a connection and know who know about that culture. They want to because those people, maybe they weren't able to get jobs before, and they want them to make sure that people are heard.
Oh, and I absolutely believe in diverse voices and lifting up people whose voices haven't been heard, and maybe they haven't, their stories haven't been published. But here's the thing. Are we still recording?
And you threw in the theme of the festival too. Diverse voices building community. So we got that in there. All right. So let's give Carmen Agradidi a round of applause. Let's give Laura Freeman a round of applause. Let's give the AJC Decatur Book Festival presented by Emory University a round of applause. Let's get a Little Shop of Story, a round of applause, and all our other booksellers. Let's give the Dekalb Education Foundation a round of applause. And of course, since I followed the head of the DeKalb County Library from her beginnings in Clarkston and Dunwoody, and should I tell you the whole story? But of course, the library as well. And so, with that being said,
Jerry G.
And Jerry
that would be me. And I promise you, next year, regardless of what it may look like, I will bring my drum, which I have in my trunk right now, and we are going to have a children's parade.
Oh, yes.
It will be so loud that we'll get a lot of people to have fun with being bibliophiles. So let's make sure that you guys pick up your book from Little Shop of Stories, and they will be signing, correct, Deborah? Yeah. Around the walkway. And thank you, and we're back!